So what we need to do, obviously, is just go back to FE7, take Marilinus, and expand his rollout exponentially to become the
Oh,
War
yes.
Master.
Bring him back. It'll be perfect.
So what do you do when someone comes out with the idea of, why don't we just completely remove tactical combat from Fire Emblem? Well, you decide to put together a video with your buddy to talk about how that's a bad idea, and there are way better ideas that you can use to save the future of Fire Emblem, so to speak. And today, that's exactly what we're going to do. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone. If you enjoy what I do, my coverage of turn-based strategy RPGs, regular RPGs, the gaming sphere in general, a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. And also, we're going to have a special guest on this episode, so make sure you follow through and find the links to his stuff in the description down below as well. Thank you so much. Okay, Canada, we have a little bit of a fun episode here today, a little bit something outside the norm, but before we get into the exact topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are for the people who might not know?
Yes, hello, hi. I mean, I'm not exactly new to the channel, but some people might not have heard me before, so hi everybody. I'm Canada. I draw stuff. You can probably find me on Twitter with all my art and all that, and yeah, sometimes I do like thumbnails or whatever for Tom's channel, or we do like streams together, but yeah, hi.
Exactly, we do. People know some of our legendary pop-offs for big reveals of things like Armored Core, Metroid Dread, things like that.
Yes.
Covering the big gaming news shows. Those of you who've been around for a long time, especially who are fans of Fire Emblem, you may very well recognize Canadia's art on some of my Fire Emblem stuff. Definitely a lot of the Metroid stuff that I've done. Long-time presence around the channel and a good friend, so thank you for joining me with this one.
Thank you. I was watching that clip again the other day of just the Nintendo Direct pop-off when Xenoblade came up. I was like, oh my god. And you and Jane were just sitting there like, uh-huh.
Yep, tell us more. You're the one leading this jamboree. Have at it.
Oh, that's a good time.
So what is the topic that we're here to talk about today? Because I pitched it to you. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about what it is that we're doing here.
Well, Fire Emblem, it's all going down in flames. We gotta destroy it and start from the ground up. Just strip out all the gameplay. Or so says this article that came up.
Yes, so for those of you who are tuned into the Fire Emblem social space, especially on Twitter, about a week ago now, at time of recording, there was an article put out by Nintendo Life wherein they posited the idea of, what if the future of Fire Emblem just wasn't in turn-based combat? And of course, everyone with half a brain said, I'm sorry, what was that? And yeah, going into the article basically, and you can find it linked in the description below, of course, if we are particularly disparaging towards it, by all means, read it for yourself, draw your own opinions. But it was an opinion piece that put forth the idea that because Engage sold far less than Three Houses did, clearly this marks a downturn in interest in the series, and a dramatic shift is required for the future, i.e., not having any sort of tactical combat gameplay anymore and making it solely a visual novel. So what are your thoughts on that, Canada? Because I certainly have mine.
It's an interesting idea, but yeah, we all kind of read that and go, okay, well then that's not Fire Emblem anymore. That's just something else. Which, hey, if you want to do a spin-off, sure, but that should not be the mainline experience of the series.
Exactly, and Fire Emblem is no stranger to spin-off games. We've got the Warriors titles, we've got Hash Song. What was
Hashtag TMS Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Thank you, very good. I can never remember the title of that weird.
It's just Persona 4.5.
Right, exactly. So we've done spin-off games before for Fire Emblem, so if you wanted to go like the pure visual novel, dating sim route, have at it. That's totally fine. There'll be people who will love that. I've got no issue with that. But if we're talking about main series Fire Emblem games, I don't think burning everything to the ground to build something completely new in its place is the right route to take without completely alienating everyone who gives a shit about the series.
I think, to play devil's advocate, I think where they're coming from is just, well, Three Houses did these things really well, and it also sold, really, really well, and it got a bunch of new people in. And that might be, hey, that's where their expectation is for the series now. It has to have all these things. You have to have a hub where you talk to characters. You have to go eat lunch with them and train them up. And it became really focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's also kind of other reasons why like Three Houses sold really well too. I think a huge one is just the setting itself. I think a fantasy high school setting is just really, really popular.
Oh yeah, it's like halfway to being isekai at that point. We know that's like the most popular thing on Earth. So
yeah, just high school stuff in general. Like Japan really loves that. They do that for a lot of different series. But yeah, kind of injecting that into Fire Emblem, like definitely gives it a big boost. It gives it a big draw with that. Also, it was like the first Fire Emblem on the Switch. First Fire Emblem on a console since like the Wii era, so people were like, "Ooh."
And there wasn't that many huge titles on the Switch at that point when Three Houses came out. Like there was, you had your Breath of the Wilds, your Mario Odysseys, things like that, but it was a more barren landscape in terms of huge releases with the Switch at that point, with the added benefit of Fire Emblem was becoming a cornerstone of Nintendo at that point after the great success of things like Fates. So people were like, well, I heard about these games, but like they're on the 3DS. I didn't have one, or I don't really play mobile games, whatever. But now we've got a big console release. This is my chance to check it out. And that's what happened with a lot of people.
Yeah, Smash Bros. Oh, sorry.
No,
I was just going to say Smash Bros. Is like a huge like billboard for Fire Emblem at that point. And hey, what just came out almost like less than a year ago was Ultimate.
Yeah, exactly. So people were even more aware of the series than they had been before. And like I didn't realize this until I was looking up stuff for this video. But like big names in streaming and content creation played Three Houses who had never played Fire Emblem before. Like if you're familiar with Carnage or anyone in the audience is familiar with him, like he's one of the biggest streamers around. I didn't realize he had like a full playthrough of Three Houses on YouTube that he streamed and then put the VODs up on YouTube. Yeah. Like it started off like, oh, we're going to see what this is about. And then like 57 episodes later, he beat the whole game. I was like, damn.
Wow.
I had no clue.
Yeah, I definitely saw other people that I've been following who just did not touch Fire Emblem. Check it out. They definitely looked a lot at other popular JRPGs, like, Persona.
Yeah.
Kind of like looked at their homework and said, yeah, we can do some of those things. And it worked out really well.
Yeah, and no, it did. And I mean, that's what games and really just anything creative in general needs to do is look at other successful works and go, okay, these things were really cool that they did. How can we take that and make it our own to fit what it is that we're doing here? And I'm glad that Fire Emblem is doing that now because I don't think it's something that the series had done much earlier in its lifespan. And it might be part of why it started to stagnate and suffer until Awakening came along and saved everything. So
yeah. I don't know how you feel about this, but just when I was playing Three Houses, I thought, oh, okay, all this stuff, all this time management and social stuff is cool. I don't know if I want this in every single Fire Emblem game from now on, though.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree.
Did you feel the same way?
I like it as part of the experience of Three Houses. Like, I like when a game has its own identity due to mechanics that are unique to it in an overall series. Mm-hmm. We can look at things like the various Final Fantasy games and the different quirks that each one of them has that maybe some people like or dislike, but they make part of the identity of that game in particular and make that game enjoyable on its own for those reasons.
Yeah, like 12 is going to be the Gambit one, and then 16 is going to be the Devil May Cry one.
Yep, 8 is the one with the draw and junction system, much maligned as it might be. 7 is the materia one. Like, that's what people think of when they think of Final Fantasy 7 in terms of mechanics, the materia. So it makes sense to have in its own thing, but then trying to continue to make it a system in other games is only going to have a derivative effect, I would say. Before we continue to discuss more, though, I wanted to get that idea out there of like what this article was talking about and what our thoughts on it are. Obviously, I also completely disagree. I think it's a terrible idea to just strip out all the tactical gameplay.
Yeah.
But for the rest of the episode, this is why I wanted to bring Canada on, because it's the type of thing where there's a lot of ideas that you can bring forth on how to upgrade, change, modify, refresh any formula in a game, in this case Fire Emblem, and having multiple people who can talk about that and bring different perspectives is a lot better than me just talking at the mic for God knows how long with all sorts of different ideas. And I do think there are a lot of things that we can do to Fire Emblem to reinvigorate it. So Canadian and I have here a bunch of show notes, things that we've discussed prior to the video that we wanted to go over. And then I also polled you guys in the community page asking for your hot takes about what should change, what should be added, what should be taken out of Fire Emblem. There's a few of those that we wanted to highlight. We'll do that at the end of the video as well.
Yeah, there was a bunch of good ideas there.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all had some really good stuff going there. And that's why I wanted to set the overall style of this video in a more podcasty way so we could just talk about it and hash those thoughts out. But yes, okay, so we can get into some of the different things that we wanted to talk about here. We have a loose set of systems here grouped into a couple of different types of categories. First off, things with like the army and warfare systems, the actual war aspect of Fire Emblem that it's always entailed, and maybe some things we could do with that. Then we've got ideas about different social systems, if we are going to have them, what we would like them to be, what we would like that to entail, or maybe what we would like to remove in the future. And then just some more general thoughts about like the series identity, our own musings, all that type of stuff. So we can just take the points one at a time, alternate off, and if you'd like, I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So in the idea of like army, warfare management, all that type of good stuff, obviously if you know Fire Emblem, we know what it entails. It's grid-based, turn-based, player phase, enemy phase. You've got all of your standard series staples, things like the weapon triangle, sometimes breakable weapons, sometimes not, different promoted classes with different skills, all that type of stuff. Those are all things that I think should stay. Like, I don't think any of that should really change in the future. Do you have any feelings about that, Canada?
Yeah, no, that's classic Fire Emblem. I don't think I want any of that to change, really.
Right. I completely agree. There's something that someone mentioned in the comments of the community post that I'll just bring up now, and we'll touch on it again at the end. But things like, I think the break system are a really good evolution of that core original Fire Emblem style. It just feels very natural with the way the weapon triangle is. So stuff like that, I think we could definitely see stick around as well, and hopefully will see stick around. That type of evolution, that's fine. But that core, that needs to stay the same for it to be a proper Fire Emblem game. Unless you're talking something like Echoes and Gaiden that just had its own weird, wild, and crazy ideas because it was the second game in the series, and then they just preserved that to make it a faithful remake. But outliers like that aside, I think we can agree that that type of stuff needs to stay. So that's what we're going to talk about here. It still mostly
plays like Fire Emblem, though. Like,
oh, it does, yeah.
They didn't cut a lot of that core out, thankfully.
Yeah, they didn't. I think the big thing that stands out is like the way that magic works, draining your HP, the fact that bows can actually attack from further than 2 spaces away. Unless you have a longbow, then it's 3. Like, no, we can snipe from like 5-6 spaces away, which is awesome. And the fact that someone can only have like one weapon or like one consumable item and then just a basic stick to hit things with. But yeah, in execution, it does absolutely still play like Fire Emblem, which is good. And it shows that you can make changes and still have that core be intact. But so we're not here to talk about changing that core stuff. This is what can we add on top of it. And the first thing that I thought of was these are war games, or they're supposed to be anyway. We oftentimes have all of these discussions about like, oh, well, and when Bern invaded these great armies, or the armies of Dane marched upon Crimea, or whatever. What if we could actually see things like that happening through something like real-time army battles that we see in the Suikoden and Eiyuden Chronicles games, right? Where you actually have your army units led by your named characters that have different roles, different like archery squads, mage squads, phalanxes of tanky units, things like that, terrain that you can take advantage of, and then have those battles actually play out in the control of the player. I think that could be really cool, and it could really actually make the player feel the scope of the narrative instead of just, yes, this battle happened, but we didn't see any of it because we were off having this skirmish between 20 people on the side, but that was somehow still the most important fight in the entire battle. Like, it just, there's a weird dissonance there sometimes.
Yeah, like I get that Fire Emblem, like it is like you controlling a smaller squad compared to other tactical games, but I think Three Houses kind of played with that, where they have like your battalions, and there was like a big focus on like seeing them behind you in the battles and stuff.
And I always loved that. I thought that was one of the coolest things that Three Houses did, where it's like, not only are the battalions something that you can equip to give yourself a stat boost and be able to use their gambits, but it's like you'll actually see them in the fights. If you zoom in all the way to the map level as you run around, like, they'll follow your character around and everything as you move them. Like, they did lean into that idea, and I want to see more of that, because that is so cool.
If they took some of that control, but then, like, put it over just, like, a larger mass of troops, like, really, they could sell a lot of just the bombastic war factor of these fights.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, that would be something cool to see. That'd be a good way to market it, honestly.
Well, yeah, because people are going to be like, oh, this is something that Fire Emblem has never done before, but you see in, like, grand strategy games such as the Total War series, right, where you engage in a
not
fight.
Much changes.
Right, yeah. And you start a fight, and it's like, wait, there are actually 300 troops in my control on this side of the battlefield against my opponent's 400. This is going to be interesting. And get a little bit of that in there. You don't need to make it a huge thing. It doesn't need to be the core of the gameplay, but having it be a facet of it, I think could be really cool. Absolutely.
Oh, I just thought they could do something like Advance Wars, but like, just like add like a 0 on the end of it, and kind of, or like a couple zeros.
honestly, like, just something to sell that idea that these major battles are actually taking place between large troops, not just your select squad of kitted out dudes and sometimes like 8-year-old mages, but you know. So
it does feel a little weird when you have like one armored unit like Edelgard just countering like 18 guys. It's just like, yeah, okay, she just took out the whole army by herself.
Yes, I'm glad I can hold this bridge by placing one dude in turtle armor and a spear here. Excellent.
I love my armor units though.
Oh, I mean, me too. If we could roll up in something like Sacred Stones and have Gilliam and then all of the boys, like 30 other dudes in heavy plate, it's like, now we're holding the bridge. Let's go. So, yeah, I think that could be definitely a very cool approach to take. And because of that background, like you mentioned in Three Houses, not actually that much of a step forward compared to what we've already had.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, like, I did feel like the graphics of Three Houses kind of suffered because, like, they went to Koei Tecmo, who did the Warriors game, and they're like, can you do it where there's, like, 1 million guys on screen in battle? And it's like, yeah, we can. And, like, you get the individual characters now looking worse as a result.
The resolution of each individual soldier's armor is going to be atrocious.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But, again, moving up to a much stronger system now with the Switch 2 and things like that should be far more feasible to try and pull off, since that's rumored to be, like, what, PS4 Pro level? I'll take that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'll take that too, thank you. Another thing they could add, though, is kind of more Gambit and squad systems. Maybe a little bit like Unicorn Overlord, but then you could, like, kit out your guys with, like, their own unique, like, tactics. And maybe even build custom ones, like Unicorn Overlord as well, or Final Fantasy Tactics, something.
I definitely think so, right? Because, like, that's where you could tie it back to actually having squads of units together. And it would be a good way to bring in things like generic faceless units that you do see, like you're running around the monastery in Three Houses, and there's just like dudes in armor who are part of your army, quote unquote, that you never really see, but like they're apparently there doing things. You could actually have those soldiers kitted out, like, okay, I want this squad to be a bunch of Pegasus Knights and be able to go do like aerial bombardments of things, or I want to have the squad of 10, 15 heavy armor knights to hold a position, things like that, and actually be like, okay, I can put resources into, maybe I can upgrade this squad from iron to steel weapons and still have those base Fire Emblem things, but actually managing the army and being able to have them do more different stuff, and like pull in the Gambit system from Three Houses as well. Like, yeah, let's have more carts full of explosives. Let's have more cavalry charges. Let's have more like poison arrow rain, things like that, and actually make it more of an army battle situation that you have control over, instead of just, I've got this group of heavy infantry, I will equip them on this person. They now have this heavy infantry that's otherwise not customizable.
It's like they may be generics, but, you know, if you can name them, if you can customize them, they're going to have, like, a lot of people that are fans.
Yeah.
Like, look at what happened with Gatekeeper, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like, that is the perfect example.
He is just a generic guy, but people loved him.
And then if you could give people the opportunity to, like, name army troops after their friends and family, or, like, people that they know online, it would be insane. Yeah, you would have just, like, entire communities of people that are just, like, of an entire subreddit or Twitter community's group worth of people with all of their usernames and stuff. It would be so cool. I think it would be a ton of fun. It doesn't have to be super involved just to save actual game dev resource management, but I think it would be a lot of fun to have.
I know a certain YouTuber that would love to do a playthrough like that.
What do you mean? I couldn't possibly imagine what you're talking about. To be able to have community members as the generic faceless soldiers getting slaughtered by the dozen, that would be fine. I would never do something like that. Another point that I wanted to bring up was the idea of, since I mentioned it just now, like actual resource management, supply lines, logistics, things that an actual army has to worry about to continue to sell the idea of we are managing an army, we are fighting wars between countries, big power struggles. An army can only march on its stomach, right? So maybe this is where we can see side missions come in that maybe would be your grinding missions or whatever. Again, going back to Three Houses, you had all those kind of extra missions you could take during the month to get like gold or a special weapon or something like that. Mm-hmm. But now they could be like, okay, we need to go and secure a cache of iron that we found in the mountains, but it's being contested by the nation that we're warring with. If we can complete this mission and take that, maybe we can produce more weaponry. Maybe we can upgrade the weapons of our generic squads, or we'll get a discount on forging new steel weaponry for people, things like that, up to a certain amount of gear, that type of thing. Or maybe like the enemy has supplies that they're trying to transport back to the capital. We need to ambush them and destroy it or take it for ourselves. And then in the future, they won't be able to utilize it for themselves. And things like that could flow the state of the campaign as you go through the story and let you actually have some control over what's happening. Like
having resources to manage, having to make decisions based on that. I think a lot of people, like, they just want, like, oh, I just want a shop that has, like, all the items and then I can just buy them. They think they want that, but they don't. What they actually do want is these limitations and this decision-making for different options, because then it feels like what you're doing has weight. Mm-hmm. And then when you get down to the nitty-gritty of combat and you have a weapon that has like only a few more durability left, or you only have so many healing items left, it adds that tension and it adds like a little bit more satisfaction when you like turn things in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Like, I can imagine it being like, man, thank God 2 missions back we secured that steel mine and we were able to make some steel weaponry. Otherwise, we might not have had the damage to beat this boss, that type of thing.
It would feel like the missions that you're actually doing have some weight to them instead of clearing out enemies again and again.
Right. And it would be like, I feel like it could add replayability too, because it's like, oh, last time we took this steel mine, now we're going to go after the artifact, see what that item is, or see how it changes fights down the line, whatever. I had the thought of like, it would make your decisions more important, because it's like, well, do I want to use this vulnerary here to heal this 5 HP or not, because we only have like 2 more that we can buy back at base until we like secure the supplies to make more, instead of the merchant just being like, ah, yes, what's that? You have 5 million gold? Well, I happen to have 15 million vulneraries ready for you, my lord.
Wow, how convenient. This supply chain rules.
We have the strongest economy I've ever seen in any fantasy game.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like how genealogy handles the item economy in that game, where like trading becomes like way harder, but then it does add like layers of depth that you don't get from the other games.
Yeah. There's so many cool systems like that, and like you said, limitations specifically that genealogy did that we've never really seen again. And I would love to see a form of a return to that isn't just a limitation, because we know people don't like friction nowadays in their games, right? That's a big thing.
Well, that's what makes that game so replayable. And you were talking about replayability. I was thinking of like Armored Core 6, where you have to pick missions. Like, I don't know about you, but I was just so excited on New Game Plus or whatever. Like, oh, okay, now I can see what this other mission was. Like,
absolutely. It's so much more interesting when it's like, you know, there's paths that could have been taken and now you get to explore them and see like the what if scenario.
I might like that a little more than just another story route that's functionally the same.
But honestly, yeah.
You're just fighting off a different faction of enemies this time.
That's something that I would like to draw an example back to Super Robot Wars. And I know that's something that I've talked about on the show before, not that many people have experience with, but that is actually how some Super Robot Wars games handle their route splits, where there's multiple of them throughout the game, maybe 5, 6, 7, even 8 over the course of the game.
That's a
And
lot.
yeah, and some of them are only like maybe a mission or two, because it's like, well, we need to split our forces and go handle 2 objectives at once, and it's going to be like 2 battles, and then you group back up. But then you group back up. That's the thing. It's like, okay, X amount of our force is going to go over to this mission. X amount of our force is going to go to this mission. You can only pick one, and your forces are going to get split between the 2 of them. So you have to decide where you want to go based on what forces are going where, what you've upgraded, what you have available from different shows and series and all that type of stuff. And then just because you went, usually it's split between real robots and super robots, so like Gundam versus Gurren, that type of thing.
Yeah, Gurren.
And you can be like, okay, well, we went with the super robots the first route split, but now we're going to go with the real robots the second route split, and like that could change things, because you'll get a secret from one route and then a secret from another route, or miss out on things because you weren't staying consistent, all that different type of stuff.
Yeah.
So seeing something like that with Fire Emblem would help a lot, and I think could be done in the way that we're talking about here, with like being able to choose different missions and doing different things for replayability. So I totally agree on that.
Well, another thing that could be, because we're talking about like different types of mission structures, but like if there were assassination missions or just targeting specific squads, instead of having to just clear out the entire map no matter what, just having some like variation where, okay, your task is to take these guys out, then you're done, then you can go, go home.
Yeah,
go play
absolutely.
Xbox.
We can go back to the Somniel and eat more cake.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. People talk all the time like, oh, I want more mission objectives and variety in Fire Emblem. And sometimes you get that. Sometimes, you get the odd defense mission and everyone throws their hands up in joy because defense missions are awesome. Or you'll get like, hey, we need to activate like these specific dragon veins. Like that was something that happened in Fates a lot, where they tried to incorporate a lot of more out there mission objectives.
They had a lot of gimmick maps, but like,
well, and that's what I was going to
fun.
say is there's a fine line to walk between something that's just a gimmick for the sake of variety versus something that's like, it's different and interesting,
Yeah.
And I think Fates did
just
that
thinking
pretty
of
well.
that one in Fates with the pots.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like there's weird
There's 18
stuff.
pots and they each have their own different effects. It's just like that scene from Undertale where like Papyrus has like all the different colored tiles and all the different effects.
Yep,
It's like,
exactly.
okay guys, we gotta calm down a little.
And then the orange ones do this, but if they're next to a yellow one, it does this other thing. Then it's like, oh god, yeah, you never want to go that far. And that's the joke in Undertale, absolutely. But again, like we're in a war scenario, right? So yeah, like a specific VIP target extraction, even like you have to rescue someone, escort them out, or yeah, maybe you have to assassinate someone, take out a certain squad. And then in those types of missions where you have a very focused objective, it would give you room to have side objectives as well. Like, yeah, we have to take out this VIP target, but there's also a fort along the way that you could seize to try and like get some extra munitions that the group had stashed away there, and you can get yourself like an extra Hellfire tome or something. Like just little things like that.
That would be great, yeah.
It's like harder to be like, okay, let's incorporate those things when it's just, well, we need to eradicate every enemy on this map, or we have to seize the gate, and those are that's it. Those are the 2 objectives you're going to have for the next 26 chapters. Have fun.
I feel like the older Fire Emblems, like kind of the Kaga ones, had more of that, where like you could go to the other side of the map and help someone out and like recruit them, like in Shadow Dragon, or like save this village before the bandits get it in Genealogy. You get like different rewards based on that, like just from going out of your way, where you don't always have to, but
yeah,
it helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And because that's what happens, where people will be like, well, I just need to seize this gate, but I want to get all the XP, so I'm just going to clear all the enemies anyway. So you would need to have ways to maybe have a major penalty if you dawdle too long. Like, no, you have to take out this target or they're going to escape. They're running across the far side of the map to leave the area. You need to get there now and take them out. Like, that type of thing to make it so that for the sake of efficiency or optimization, it doesn't just turn into a route the entire enemy anyway and then finish off the boss.
Yeah. Or you could just have like, oh, well, these guys don't even give it EXP. They are not a priority, so they don't matter.
That's true.
And then that's a resource loss kind of thing.
Right. And that is something that they've started to do more. Like, I know that was the thing in Engage where it's like, okay, the first couple waves of reinforcements will give you XP, but the reinforcements are never going to stop, and they also stop giving you XP, so get going, kid.
Yeah. Yeah, like what was it? chapter 11 or 12, the escape chapter.
Yep.
Yeah, in general, there's just like there's a lot of good story moments you can have if you structure missions like that too.
Yeah,
I think they've been taking more of a notice of it.
They definitely have, yeah, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about some of the newer games, where they have been trying to diversify a bit, which is awesome. So yeah, I think having some cool mission types like that would be good. That's a very good point. I guess then just kind of following up from all of those points, and something I've mentioned a little bit as we've been talking here, is the way that you could potentially have these different types of battles, either like the real-time battles or like resource management missions or assassination missions, that type of stuff, could actually have an influence on the way that certain story missions go, even if it doesn't necessarily create like whole new branching narratives, like something like you get into more with things like Triangle Strategy, but still have an impact on maybe the next mission or the next couple of missions, where it's like, oh, we failed this objective to take this mine or stop this convoy that was a bonus thing. The enemies in the next couple of missions are going to have higher quality weapons as a result because they got their weapon shipment through. Or like I think of, as an example you'll be familiar with, fairly early on in Metal Gear Solid 3, when you can like go around and blow up all of the food supplies and like armories of the enemy soldiers. And then it's like they're starving, so like they keep passing out, or like they don't have like as many explosives and things like that. That again could really lean into the war management aspect and give you as the player more agency to try and impact the way the story develops in small ways. The story can still go where they want it to go, but maybe you can make things easier for yourself down the line by taking on a harder objective earlier, that type of thing. I think that could be a ton of fun. Absolutely. That just, to me, is like, okay, I want to maximize my potential here. How far can we stretch our forces to try and get something cool to happen down the line? And then maybe sometimes we can't get away with it and we're going to have to deal with it later. That's just how it goes. That's where my challenge-minded brain tends to go with that type of thing.
Yeah, no, those would all be, like, great. Just seeing the actions you take actually have a result over, like, the next coming chapters. I think it would be hard to market for a Fire Emblem game, but just having the decision-making really affect your campaign, like, it would make it a lot more replayable. It would make it a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think people would just really like that.
I think so. It's one of those things, like you said earlier, where people don't realize that they want it, but then when it exists, it's like, oh, this is really cool. Oh, this is so much fun. So sometimes you just have to do stuff like that and let people discover the fact that they enjoy it. And it gets around a thing, too, where, like, how many times do you wind up in a situation where it's like, we cleared every enemy on the map and defeated the boss, but now because this is the way the story needs to go, we're getting swarmed by reinforcements and we need to flee.
Please no more of that.
It's constant. So having ways to have a little bit more of an impact on the way things are developing, even if they kind of need to shoehorn that type of thing in sometimes to make sure things go where they want it to go, can at least lend the idea to the player that you are having more of an impact on things than we ever have before with Fire Emblem.
Maybe we could see a return of bigger maps.
Honestly,
like genealogy. That was a huge part of making that feel like a real war. We had several conflicts going on in different parts of the area.
Yeah, and having to manage it, and it's like, well, we have to save this person over here, but there's also knights barreling down on our position from the north. How do we split things to make this happen?
I think it's like chapter 7 of genealogy. That's one that not a lot of people like, 'cause like half of it's a desert.
Yep.
But like, yeah, you got Selef's squad on one side. You got what's his name of Balmung? The
Shannon.
Myrmidon dude. Yeah, Shannon?
Shannon, probably, yeah.
Yeah. You got him with Patty, you got Ares over there, and then you have, like, Leaf fighting his own war, trying to defend his kingdom, and you're just trying to get to him the whole map.
Yeah, there's just wyverns and dark mages all over the place. Yeah, exactly.
I think that one's really cool. A lot of people hate it, though, so maybe I don't know shit.
Sometimes the greater whole just doesn't have as good taste, and that's okay.
There we go. Yeah,
we're gonna kick the hornet's nest a little bit. Get that engagement numbers up in the comments there. Comment and tell me how much you hate my opinion and that I am wrong and that you are correct down in the comments below. Let us know.
People are gonna come back to this like a couple years after the genealogy remake and be like, "This guy was full of shit."
They made that mission even worse than it already was. What the hell was he talking about? Oh, God, let's not bring that down upon our heads. So, to move forward, that was the army and warfare system stuff. I wrote down a lot of those points, but then, Canada, you were getting into the social systems more, and you had a lot of really cool ideas drawing from like different games like Persona and things like that that have good social systems. And
Yeah,
I definitely,
especially Persona.
yeah, I definitely want to talk about those with you because, like, well, you said it best prior to us recording, where it's like if the social systems are going to exist, they need to actually be systems, not just like quirky one-off things that you do 5 million times and then get sick of it. So, what are some of the ideas you got going on here?
'Cause I was thinking about that article and like how they think the social stuff is like the be-all end-all for the series, and like the idea of axing out the tactical element of Fire Emblem's absurd, but I think there's a lot more that could be done to work in those social elements. Because Three Houses had a lot of it, but it kind of became required.
Well, it definitely did, yeah, for raising
yeah,
your recruits and everything. Like, I must feed them all and then run over and do the garden and then go to the arena and put someone in a tournament and okay.
Engage was kind of like they made it so it is more optional. Like you don't have to do like 8 laps of the Somniel every time you go back between battles.
It's always felt like it's never been quite integrated properly, especially since we have examples of other game series like Persona that do it really well to show that it can be done. It just needs to be done differently. So what are some of those examples you were going to say?
Yeah, my idea was, hey, if we're ripping off Persona already, might as well just take more, right?
Just go whole hog. Listen.
Why not, yeah.
Get good, loser. We're taking your stuff and making it our own.
Yeah, I was thinking of like the social link / confidant system, which are kind of like supports in Fire Emblem,
right?
But if you could do something in Fire Emblem where, based on the character that you are having I almost said social link, having a support with, and then give more benefits to the player from that, really encourage that. There was there was a thing in Persona where once you hit a certain level with one of your party members, they'll save you from a fatal blow.
Oh, cool.
And I was kind of thinking of like in pair-ups where they do that, right?
Yep.
In Awakening and Fates.
Yeah.
But instead of it being tied to that in combat, it encourages you to seek that out outside of combat with the social elements.
Yeah, it's an interesting example to think about with Awakening and Fates in particular, because in Awakening, it was just purely chance-based, and that chance went up based on the support ranks of the paired-up units. Whereas in Fates, it became, at least with guarding, a purely mechanical thing, because you built up like the little shield points from fighting, and then as soon as it was full, it would trigger no matter what. So having it be more tied to that social connection, like you're saying, in a more
like
Awakening
your
style
relationship level.
Yeah, but then have it be like, because Awakening didn't have a social system like that. It was just building your supports in combat and then getting them. Having it be so much more tied to actually how well do these characters know each other would be awesome. I think of an example because, for those of you who don't know, I've been getting really into Warhammer recently, and there's an audiobook I've been listening to. And the only reason this is relevant is because in the book, I just recently came across 2 characters, 2 Space Marines, and they were bantering, and one of them mentioned how the smaller of the 2 has a sword and a shield, and how, like, his shield has taken more hits for the other guy, because the guy is always jumping in the way to protect his battle brother with the shield, than he's had to protect himself with the shield. And
that's nice.
Yeah, and it's the perfect example of that type of thing, because these two have been fighting together for like 400 years, because Space Marines are basically immortal. So having more stuff like that happen between members of your army that you as the player can nurture and grow over the course of a run seems like just such a perfect natural fit. And it's a little bit there with Fire Emblem, but it can be pushed way, way further, and I feel like it should be.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, would it be more impactful if, instead of taking the hit and it dealing no damage, like, what if the person protecting them actually gets hit? Like, they have better defenses or whatever, but, like, they do tank it.
I definitely think that it should be that, because it's always hysterical when you
That's
have
kind of what Persona does.
when you have Mozu, the villager girl, who jumps in the way of the giant armored knight. He's like, "I'll protect you," and gets stabbed through the chest, but it does no damage. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I can see it being a thing that would work with a system wherein a character would use their natural defenses. Like, maybe if they would evade the blow, they can instead parry it, like they have a chance to dodge it still. It basically takes their stats and uses it instead of the person who was being targeted originally. They could get hit, they could block it. If they're a huge armor knight, maybe they just take the hit and it's no problem. But having that level of risk involved as something that you need to manage, I think would definitely make it way more impactful as well. I agree.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be every character, but just like, you know, maybe the bigger ones that are more suited for it. Maybe the speedier ones disarm the enemy, or you know, just
you can
like that.
You can flavor it all sorts of different ways to have it work with any given type of class, but still have it mechanically be the same. Like, a mage could freeze their sword hand so that they can't get the shot off or something like that. Like, there's different ways you could go about it, definitely. But then you could also build it up. Like, okay, well, I want the armor knight girl to be friends with everybody, not because she's got such a bubbly personality or whatever, but because I want her to be goalying everyone constantly, just throwing herself into the way of all of the attacks. Like, and then you could get into the strategy of it with that as well, which would be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, that'd be very fun. Another one I was thinking of, I think this is one that unlocks in Persona 4 and Persona 5 and stuff, where once you hit a certain level of like social bond with your party members, you could unlock team attacks, and those would always have like their own unique animations to them.
Oh, okay, cool.
And they play off the character's personality and quirks, and like show how they would work together in a fight. I would love to see stuff like that in Fire Emblem. It would be a lot of work, obviously, to animate like specific character animations per character pairing, but it would be cool to see.
I definitely could see it. I'm imagining, since I haven't played Persona other than P5 Tactica, I imagine it's kind of like that animation that plays when you pull off like the triangle attack in Tactica, right? Where like all the characters jump in and shoot stuff. I know it's the same animation every time in that, but
that one's kind of the all-out attack. What I was thinking of, if you look up the ones for Persona 5 Royal, like there's one where it's Yusuke and Ryuji, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Their team-up attack is like the enemy walks into a bar and like disturbs them.
Oh.
And they throw their drinks on the ground and just pull out their guns and like just shoot them with a hail of bullets.
Oh, okay.
And it's fun. It plays into their personalities. It has like a setting that's just there for some reason.
Gotcha. Just
like,
for the fun of it
this is how these two would fight together. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I don't know, you have like a thief like who trips a guy, and then you have your armored dude fall on him. Just like silly like that, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can see that. That would be really fun. And I think the way they could do it is, this is something that someone brought up in the comments as well. Again, we'll get more into it at the end, but
yeah,
like having the idea of something like the engage attacks, this could be a good way to make that continue to happen. Like, have that be a mechanic that still exists without constantly needing to have the idea of the emblem rings. Like, it's something that either needs to be charged up, or it can be used like once with a specific pairing. You know, maybe a pair up can come back from Awakening and Fates, but it only lasts for a certain number of turns, and you get different combat abilities and stat boosts based on that type of thing. These types of attacks could be part of that.
Absolutely a thing you could put in a trailer.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Nintendo Direct to sell the game.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like, look at this awesome pair-up attack that the Lord has with, like, the requisite, like, Pegasus Knight love interest or something like that. Like, that could absolutely be a super cool thing. And I imagine how it would probably work, just for the sake of resources, because there's going to be so many more characters in a Fire Emblem game, is it would probably be class-specific. You have the Engage outfits in Engage are based off of like the class type and the emblem. There we go, the emblem. God, I couldn't think of the word. Or like the emblem.
The magical man.
Yes, exactly. The mystical ring man. It's like the color scheme comes from the emblem, and then the outfit comes from like the class and different things like that. I can totally see that working. Like,
and you could have specific ones for like super important characters like lords or whatever.
Oh yeah, like the Lord would have maybe a specific type of animation with a few different key characters and stuff like that. Definitely. But like every armor knight and thief will have the trip and fall combo, that type of thing. But that would still add a lot of life to stuff. That would totally be a ton of fun, and especially if you could only use it once you got to like maybe a max support level or something like that, it would be just another reason to want to push those social systems and get those, as you say, social links to their max, because it'll give you such a tangible power boost. That would be really cool.
Yeah, instead of just focusing all on social stuff, just make it tie back into the gameplay.
Because it's like, well, yeah, you got to get your supports up so you get your stat boosts. And it's like, that's all well and good, but it's very invisible behind the scenes. Like, if you don't know to look for it, it's easy to forget that you're even getting a stat boost from supports. Like, it happens to me constantly. I forget about that constantly, and I'm obviously a huge veteran of Fire Emblem. So having it be something that's much more forward-facing, like you get a special attack if you get their supports up, like that's going to be something that pushes the average player to do it far more than the current system does.
Yeah, it's definitely more visible effects, because yeah, like you're saying, like I forget about a lot of the stats behind the scenes too.
Yeah.
That leads into the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. You're on a roll.
Because there's okay, you have your social links in Persona, and you have the ones with your party members that you get like direct battle benefits. Mm-hmm. But there's other characters that you don't necessarily like have in fights, so just NPCs, but they give you still little benefits too. They're shopkeepers that make their items a little cheaper, or they give you access to special items. You get characters that give you EXP boosts. They get characters that give you like more windows for social opportunities. Like in Persona, it's like on the calendar, but like however Fire Emblem operates with like points or just support options. Right. You could add more benefits to the player that they would feel instead of just numbers going up.
Right. Yeah, I'm imagining a scenario where it's like you can take on certain little objectives or even missions for like the local armorer, right? And then, well, because she likes you because you either helped her get like resources that she needs, or maybe she has a like sick parent or something, and you help her secure the medicine that she needs to help them out. Like then for the foreseeable future, you'll get a 10% discount on all weapons you buy from her, or she'll be forging extra stuff for you, that type of thing.
The way I was thinking of it is it's still with the units in your army though. So like it could be like the armorer's daughter or something, right? And it's like if you get her support high, then she helps you get like cheaper store items or something. And you'd have people like, oh my god, you gotta get your support up with Brigadine right away, because Brigadine gives you like the EXP boost. Right, and she's so good.
Gotcha.
You would start developing like strategies like that, and certain characters would have like benefits and things to weigh over others depending on which ones you go for with supports early on. Okay.
And yeah, it's almost like you'd be investing in a skill tree, but the skill tree is your characters. So it's like, okay, I can use... And actually, oh man, I like this idea, because then that could incentivize you. Like, because we've been moving away from having a bunch of the same type of class represented in an army, right? Like, back in the day, you would get like 4 axe fighters by chapter 10. It's like, well, what am I going to do with all these guys? And the idea was that you could replace someone if they permanently died. But now... See, if you have 3 archer girls, and it's like one of them is the armorer's daughter, one of them is the merchant's daughter, and one of them is like the drill sergeant's daughter, you can choose which daughters. One. All daughters, yeah. I don't know. I'm running with simplicity here. One's green, one's blue, one's red. Like, we're very simple here. But it's like, okay.
One has 1 ponytail, one has 2 ponytails.
One has 3.
It's going up the front.
Yeah, just dangling down in front of her nose. She's always trying to blow it out of the way. Oh my god.
Sneezing.
Yeah, really inconvenient as an archer. Like, it gets caught in the bowstring. It's a really bad time.
You gotta get the support with Sneezerella, though. She gets that EXP boost. It's really good.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, part of choosing what of the 3 representatives of a class you want to use could be which one is going to give you this sort of meta progression. And it's something that maybe you could see, like maybe it would be represented in their character sheet. Like, okay, if you get your supports up with this character, then this tangible benefit will be unlocked for you because of that. That could be really cool. And it would let it really lean into what are the personalities and lives and backgrounds of these characters, and how does that actually affect the game, instead of it just being like, Bernadetta is scared all the time. This in no way affects her capabilities on the battlefield in any tangible way. She's just a scaredy cat and doesn't want to come out of her room. Well, maybe there's something you can actually use with her, again, I'll say social link, to actually have a tangible gameplay benefit. Maybe she has stat negatives because she's scared all the time, right? But you get her support rank up and she builds confidence, and then instead of having stat penalties, she has a stat boost. Like there's just different cool, yeah. There's so many different things you could do with a system like that. Characters could unlock skills, they could unlock a different class, they could do all sorts of different stuff. I love this idea.
Really creative with the social elements.
Yeah. And it would give people a reason to care. Because, like, we're tangenting a little bit here, but I think it is a fair point to bring up now. Like, so many people, especially old fans of the series, have been turned off by so many of the social aspects. Like, I know so many people that loved Three Houses and its story and its characters, but hated how much time they had to spend in Garreg Mach.
The monastery.
Yeah, exactly. And that got toned down a bit for Engage, but still people... Well, yeah, I'm partially guilty of this as well. We're like, I don't want to go wyvern riding. I don't want to do push-ups. Like, I don't... Unless it's giving me a tangible gameplay benefit, I don't care. I don't have any reason to want to do it. But if everything has a tangible gameplay element, and you actually make it more engaging as a result, then I could see some of those people coming around.
A little more than just stat boosts. Like, stat boosts are fine, and, like, you can treat them as being optional, but, yeah, making them more tangible rewards and perks. I think it would just, like, add a lot more to the experience.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Absolutely.
But no one cares about that stupid bullshit. Because you know what people want with their social systems? They want romance. They just want to see the character, the waifu or husbando they like, and they want to smooch them real good.
There is a certain subset of the audience that hates you right now.
No one gives a damn. No. I think though, okay, but looking at the last couple Fire Emblems, like Engage and Three Houses, like, especially Engage, it's about, like, engagement rings, fuck.
Well, yeah, exactly.
They don't really do much with the romance besides have, like, one cutscene.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, like, maybe a post-game thing where it mentions them together. Like,
yeah.
They could do a lot more with that.
They definitely can.
Like, for Persona again, what if you just cheated on people? That would be fun.
Just causing drama in the middle of our war room as our three different lovers all burst in simultaneously and start quarreling over who gets to keep us.
But you can have, like, actual consequences for it, too. But, like,
oh, yeah.
You know, there's greedier people out there.
Oh, yeah.
I know there's people that don't want to do, like, 10 playthroughs for their 10 favorite characters to, like, S rank with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you could lean into that, absolutely. Having something like that in Fire Emblem, where you can actually S rank someone fairly early, and then have that have a major impact on your whole run, outside of even getting into, like, potentially trying to romance multiple characters, that would be a cool way to have that benefit be there. Not like, well, I've been at A support with this character the whole time, and I know I'm going to marry them, but I have to wait until the climax before the final battle to give them the ring so I can get my one feeling. CG cutscene.
It would be cooler if it was earlier, and, like, didn't Awakening have kind of more of that, too?
It did, definitely.
Like, Chrom gets married, like, super early.
Yep, he does.
It could be to you.
Yeah, and it's because they have to have, like, that point where Lucina is born and becomes a thing. But I mean,
outside of child characters, but just like,
but it lets you do it as early as you want. Like, again, you can start unlocking the child characters basically from the start of the game by pairing characters up as early as possible. You just then have to get to the point on the world map where you can access their fight. But it gives you more of a reason to care about that stuff early, and I think that is really key to making the social systems actually work. I think as well, it just came back to my mind, it's not to do with marriage, fortunately, except for the people in the audience that wish that it was, but in Pokemon, when you, like, in the when you get, like, a higher friendship with your Pokemon in some of the newer games, that whole thing of, like, competitively, yes, it's annoying because it's, like, it makes it even easier than it already was, but it's always been cool when it's like your Pokemon survives a hit that would have knocked it out because it just tanks it because it doesn't want to disappoint you.
Yeah.
Or, like, it shakes off a status effect, or it avoids an attack, or it gets a free crit. Like, it's cool to see tangible stuff like that just randomly happen because you cared to build a connection with that Pokemon, or in other games with that character. That is fun. So seeing more stuff like that in Fire Emblem would be just so cool. I would love that.
I want to feel that in Fire Emblem. I want to go into battle with my wife, who's super cool and strong, and like your character is next to theirs, and it actually feels like they're like cooperating.
It would be so cool, and I
more,
just thought
more than just it just gives a speed boost of 2.
Yeah, exactly. And like you could see it with other characters in the game too, because think back to like Pent and Louise in Fire Emblem 7. Like
I love that.
they are the battle couple, right? That's the whole thing, is like they're in battle together and they can basically solo the entire map that they start on, just murdering wyverns. And like it would be so cool to see that. Like, okay, yeah, you know, you're flanked and your wife, husband, whatever, like lands a mighty critical to finish off a unit because you guys are getting surrounded and like you're fighting desperately to protect each other and that type of thing. Like, or like someone takes a critical hit and their HP gets low and then the other character gets like a stat buff, things like that, and like goes crazy. We even see that with certain types of bosses sometimes in Fire Emblem already, where it's like 2 brothers, and if you kill one of them, the other one like gets a full heal and like a stat bonus and like goes crazy and comes after you and stuff. Like more stuff like that, please, would be so cool.
Imagine if you marry a Pegasus Knight, and then your character gets an effective bonus against archers.
Oh, that is a really,
not
really
like
cool
full
idea.
effective, but like maybe 1.5 times kind of damage. Like just
it's
because
like,
you don't want her to get shot so bad.
Yep, this is now a priority target for you. Absolutely.
Yeah,
that would be super cool. That would be really, really cool.
But you got to be like 5 spaces away from her so she's watching.
Like, look at what I'm doing for you, honey. Stab. No, there's a ton of different stuff that you can do with actual tangible in-game stuff with relationships.
And then if you cheat on them, then you get less of an effective bonus, or the store items cost even more now.
Or like
because the merchant's daughter's pissed off.
Or push it further. Maybe they leave the army, right?
Oh yeah.
Maybe they desert, or like God forbid they like desert and take something with them. You know,
God, yeah. They take another character that you didn't even know, but they're like friends with. So.
Yeah. Well, think of Cult of the Lamb, right? Where if you get a cultist that starts dissenting, and it's like they leave and take a bunch of golden resources with them, and it's like you.
You'd have to think strategically of like with the social elements of, okay, how many benefits can I reap before I start like screwing myself over here?
Yeah, definitely. That could be a fun kind of. People already get into the like, yes, the child rearing eugenics simulator that is awakening. Like,
we could go even worse.
Exactly, we can make them worse. But it's like people in the community are already kind of prepped for that type of idea of like, yes, how can I manipulate people's emotions to get even more in-game benefits?
These super children weren't even made with a loving marriage. They were made on a sham.
Designed in a lab with spreadsheets. But people love their spreadsheets. I think there would be a certain devilish glee that people would get from figuring out how to maximize the benefits without too many negatives. So yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I think that would all be super cool. And we kind of like hit a couple of your points there, like things that would be harder to support than others based on dialogue decisions and things like that. Like,
yeah, there's a couple other things. Yeah, I wanted to have supports like you actually have to like pick the right answer for. Yeah. I guess that is copying off Persona again, but like having ways to fuck it up. Yeah. Well, like you actually have to pay attention to the characters a bit.
Well, and that leads me into thinking about things like triangle strategy, right? Because that's a huge part of triangle strategy, where it's like, okay,
it is.
I want a certain outcome. I want a certain character to be on my side later. What can I tell them, potentially untruthfully to me, but to manipulate them into doing what I wanted? And yes, that is fucked up, but that's war, baby. Like, you need someone to act a certain way to get done what you need to get done. What are you going to tell them? And it can also just be more kind-hearted as well. Just make you, as the player, actually have to think and not be an inconsiderate dumbass.
Yeah, I mean, that whole triangle strategy playthrough went really well because you were thinking very consciously about all the characters and all your like options and their opinions and all that.
Yep, sitting there as Saranoa at like the final set of decisions to unlock the golden route,
So
with
good.
with like my fingers steepled and my glasses flashing like I'm Gendo Ikari, just like, but well, Frederica thinks this way about the Roselle, so we need to make sure we take that factor into play. But, however, Roland wants to ensure that we're able to get vengeance for yada yada, and so we need to do this.
Manipulative bastard.
But
That said, though, it's also you could also just roleplay it though. If you don't want to do the perfect decision, just do like what your heart feels or what your character that you feel their heart would feel, that kind of thing.
yeah, and just see how things shake out. And if the game is built for that, that could be so rewarding in and of itself, just to see how the story develops in satisfying ways based on those decisions. And it might be a little beyond the wheelhouse of what we can commonly expect from intelligent systems, but we know it can work because you see stuff like that with things like Mass Effect all the time, right?
Yeah.
Where characters can join you or leave, you can gain reputation with factions or lose it, whatever. And that is a thing that people really feel engaged by in games like this. So I could definitely see that being a very enticing system to have in place for players.
You are right, though. This is kind of a tall order for like intelligence system. Like, okay, we've been going on for a long time. The audience, don't get us wrong. We're not expecting them to do like any of this. It's just more the idea that like, okay, this is what could be done instead of just abandoning the core gameplay.
Right, exactly. And like we've been talking a lot of things. Some are much grander in scope than others. Some of them I think are very manageable. But it is all just spitball, and we are not game designers. We do not work for intelligent systems. More likely than not, neither one of us will ever work on a video game. But it's fun to armchair general.
And you could write entire games around our ideas. We're so smart.
Just take it to a publisher and throw money at them, and it'll happen, obviously.
It's like Dark Souls meets Fire Emblem.
My God, the man has a point. But there is absolutely a lot of room for innovation, and to their credit, Intelligent Systems has done a lot with innovation. The whole Emblem system is insane.
Like, credit to them.
Yeah. So like they can pull a lot of this stuff off, but we acknowledge that there are certain things we're talking about here that are a little bit more out there than some other ideas that are probably more manageable. Speaking of making more manageable things, you want to hit this last point that you have in all caps there?
Yeah, we got one more, and I know a lot of people are behind me on this one. We need to make the player character not a stupid brain-dead avatar again. Make them a real character, please God.
Allow them to be a real boy, please.
Yeah, just... they can still be impressionable, but just give them some personality.
This is something that everyone's been talking about for so long, right? And it seems like the general consensus is the idea of the player avatar peaked with Robin. Because Robin was 100% their own character. Like, no doubt. You could design them, change their class, all that type of stuff, and you could choose who you could marry. That's about the long and short of what impact you as the player had. And beyond that, they were still their own character with their own impact on the story, who made their own decisions, and that was great.
Yeah.
Then we kind of jumped off the deep end. Allier is kind of a return to form a little bit with Engage, where, like I've said before, really, why are we even able to name this character when they just do their own thing? Like, they are literally just a main character, but they're our avatar because that's just a requirement now. And so we're never allowed to actually have anyone say their name because we can change what it is. So they're just the Divine One or my friend or whatever.
It's weird. They do have somewhat of their own personality. And, like, you don't customize them at all. Their name's still Lear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I getting that wrong? Yeah, okay.
You've got it right. People say that I mispronounce it, but I've been saying it for so long.
Oh, no, wait. No, you do name them, though, right? Is that...
You do name them. That's the only thing you can do.
At that point, it's like, why even...
Well, you can set their birth date, but, like, that's literally it's irrelevant. Like,
But it's like they're doing this to have it be a blank slate, and while a blank slate does work for that, for a big long RPG, do people want a blank slate, or do they want someone really, really cool? And then be like, I'm cool because that's me.
Right. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too, because it's like you either need to go the route of something like Baldur's Gate 3, where you can make your own completely custom character from the ground up and then play every single decision from start to end over all 150 hours or whatever the fuck, and make that your character and your playthrough that will not be identical to anybody else's.
If you're not going to give them a voice, give them the player's voice. Otherwise, don't bother.
That is a phenomenal quote. Excellent. I completely agree. And yeah, because then it's otherwise you wind up with a situation like Allier where they're like trying to make it as if it's your character, and you are literally 100% divorced from anything that they do other than giving them a name and a birth date and like changing what class they are, which you can do to literally any character anyway. It is not tied to you making the character. It's just a little ridiculous at this point. Like, they either need to lean into it 100% and go the route of a more involved RPG where you can actually make decisions, make them your character, design them however you want, or they just need to be a proper like JRPG style protagonist and just get over it.
I think of how many times I play like Final Fantasy. Like, I look at Cloud and I say that's me, even though that's Cloud. But it's like you get that feeling of that you are that character
because you're controlling them and like you're experiencing their story through their eyes. Like, you get to.
But they still have their own voice, and they still are an entertaining character. And
yeah,
that goes a long way for a story.
Oh, absolutely. There's a reason that JRPGs and even other RPGs, like where you get to embody the character more, but they still have their own voice. Like, again, Mass Effect. Shepard has his own voice. He does his own thing. You just choose what choices he makes, and then he executes on it the way that Shepard would. But it's like they have such this like awkward. They're trying to do both things, and I think if they're going to do that, we have to go back to New Mystery of the Emblem, where we first introduced Avatar characters with my character, and have them not be the Lord. Have them be a side character. It's the same thing with Robin.
Robin too. Yeah.
Robin was more of a main character than Chris was.
Mark?
Well,
Mark was like nothing, but...
well, yeah, Mark was literally nothing. Chris, at least, they were the advisor to Marth and everything. Robin was the centerpiece of the story in a lot of ways, but like, let the Lord be the Lord. Let the Lord be the character. Let the story revolve around them, and then have the player avatar be a side part that influences the story due to their connection to the main character. That's how you can have your cake and eat it too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I completely agree. That, or they need to go lean more into the Byleth sort of route, and in every single game have a reason that they are a mute, emotionless idiot, like that you can.
But like, let you speak for them.
Right. Well, exactly. They've always been trying to have this in between thing, and it's always been weird, and people are very, very tired of it. So yeah, I think we need to get back to a return to form with that. Absolutely. I think in summary with that, Engage moved in a better direction with it in terms of how intrusive it is on the overall gameplay.
Yeah.
But they're still trying to do the Three Houses thing that the Nintendo Life article points out as being like the core of the series now. And I think they do need to do a lot more to make it actually work with what Fire Emblem should be. We
were talking a bit like before starting about this, like instead of having the hub, like go back to the world map, but then maybe have it so you can explore like the places that you're actually moving to. Have like unique shops and blacksmiths and things there.
Yeah, I mentioned
kind of like Echoes.
Yeah, exactly. Like Shadows of Valencia lets you do that to a large degree. You don't get to run around in it because it was on the 3DS, and that would have been insane. But like they do let you do that but they do let you do that with the dungeons. So kind of marry that system, right? Like have explorable areas again, because I thought the dungeons were cool, but that's a whole different topic. But then like be able to run around the villages. They can be basic, that's fine. Maybe have one or two castles or major towns that are more involved. But like go talk to people, find cool items, go to the armorer, go to the item shop, like, and have them be different areas that you can go around to. We were talking about the cold open for the episode. Like, what if you have a war camp that is a Marylandist type character that goes around? There's a reason that you have a character who mans the supply, and actually will have that base camp that you can go back to, but that it evolves and changes depending on different areas that you're in. That's something like Dragon Quest does that, or not Dragon Quest, sorry, Dragon Age, where it's like when you go to camp, it's different. And the same thing with Baldur's Gate 3. Like, the characters are there, you have some basic amenities, but things change depending on where you are in the world map. And it'll give the world map a reason to exist. The world map didn't need to exist in Engage. There being a world map was completely useless. It could literally have just been a list of all of the maps that you could just go to and then go back to in a menu without running around in it.
Yeah, you're kind of jumping
all
all over the place anyway.
Yeah, like, there's no reason to be running around on that world map. You could say there's not much of a reason to be running around on the world map in Sacred Stones either, but it at least allowed you to go to, like, the Tower of Volney and the Lagdao Ruins and, like, find monster skirmishes. But skirmishes are so few and far between in Engage that it's like, these could just be training battles that you could go do. This world map doesn't need to exist. Give it a reason to exist with this type of stuff, and it would be a way better system, I think.
I love that idea of the war camp, though, because that was something like Path of Radiance and stuff, where you see it, but you don't really feel it, because it's always, like, the same thing every time.
Yeah, you're just in the menus, but, like, you know that you're set up there because of what the characters are saying.
Bring back Malurnius, though. That'd be great. It would feel like a real, like, journey, like you're actually traveling across this world. And I was also saying, like, they could do the thing that Engage does, where after the fight you could, like, wander around the map and talk to people. Like, use that to kind of share some assets and build a town around that you can, like, come back and visit to whenever you want.
Yeah, like, you clear a map and then you come back to it, and, like, now that the shops are available, there's, like, huts and little village things set up, or, like, if you were fighting in a village, people have returned to their homes and done repairs and opened up shop again and everything. You could absolutely do that, and just like you're saying, reuse those assets in a way to save, like, dev cost. Definitely. Absolutely. It
would be so cool, but it would be way more work than a hub area. But I feel like people would appreciate it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And especially because, like, you already have it in Engage. Those maps already exist. You run around those battle maps and just collect a bunch of little motes and talk to a couple characters and then bounce.
God, yeah, just pick up the trash on the ground.
Yeah, like, if you're gonna have that as an option, cut out the hub world, hub map, whatever. Put those resources into fleshing out those maps a little bit more, and you're already 75% of the way there, easily.
Yeah.
So, I say as I armchair dev, but...
Yeah, me too.
But
back, yes.
They
should do more work for free.
They should cut out the voice acting and put those resources somewhere else.
No, that's crazy. You're crazy. I still think you're crazy.
I will die on that hill, but that's a topic for a different video, a different discussion.
Yes, entirely.
In summary, there is a ton of work that needs to be done on the social aspect of the game compared to things that they can do to flesh out, like, the war combat type of aspect. And I think they need to, if they want the social aspects to still be as big of a part as they seem to want them to be. Otherwise, I think they just need to return to the My Castle from Fates and just let you customize it. Talk to your characters there. You can have your treehouse or whatever where you go talk to your waifu, your husbando, and, like, have that be the extent of it, and just get back to the tactical stuff. It was. I really think that it was. Like, they jumped the shark with the monastery, and the monastery made sense because of the plot of the story, but it should have been a one-off thing, not something that they're trying to force in every game that they do now. We've only had one game since then. Yes, I totally get that. But the Somniel did not need to exist, and I want to see them step back from that stuff, unless they're really going to lean into it with some of the stuff that we've been talking about here, which would be good. That would be good.
I like the part of Three Houses where they go, the monastery has been destroyed, it's been 5 years, and then you go back and it's the exact same looking.
Yep, there's just, like, some holes knocked in some walls that they made sure it wouldn't impact any of the actual functionality that you're used to from the first half of the game.
Wow, Father Time sure took a bat to this place? What the fuck?
Yes, Father Time, well known for taking a bat to things. Okay, so to begin wrapping up here, because I do have to go soon, let's hit the last couple of points here on the show notes, and then we can talk about a couple of comments that we wanted to point out. So, kind of rapid fire here. You have two questions that I liked about the series identity. How much can you change and still call it Fire Emblem? And then how much are you willing to change for the sake of sales numbers? And those are the best summation of this whole discussion.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we know every game, especially more now than ever with the state of the AAA dev scene and that whole shambling corpse that it has become, the pursuit of profits and sale numbers is homogenizing everything, especially in Western game dev. Eastern game dev, especially with Japan, has maintained so much more of its identity, so much more personality. And I think ideas like the Nintendo Life article being like, just cut all the tactical gameplay and make it like a social dating sim, more people are going to like that, is the exact type of problem that we need to avoid. And it's why things like everything that FromSoft makes does so well for itself, because it just sticks to the identity that it wants to maintain and pushes it as far as they can for the people who are going to most enjoy that.
They had a clear vision, and they know people believe in that vision, and that's why they believe in it, and that's why it succeeds.
Right. And I do believe that Fire Emblem has strayed from that a bit. Not in any sort of a disastrous way, but if you look at New Emblem that started with Awakening and go through everything that's come out since then, Fates, Shadows of Valencia, Three Houses, and Engage, you can see a very fast progression of adding and changing things to try and draw in more and more people as fast as possible. And I do think that's probably in part pressure from Nintendo, since they saw that Fire Emblem had the capability to be not as big as something like Zelda and Mario, but definitely a very strong pillar of Nintendo's catalog.
Didn't like one of the new like Nintendo heads say that recently? Where, like Fire Emblem's going to be a major pillar for us now.
Yeah. And you can see it going in that direction ever since they had an entire direct dedicated to just showing off Fates back in the day. Like, that was an insane turn for the series.
That was 7 years ago.
I know. Also an insane turn for the series. But they need to be so careful about not pushing it too far. And I think the fact that articles like this even exist shows that we are far more dangerously close to that precipice than I think many people realize.
I think so too. It's like you have to look at what they're saying and kind of step back a bit and like look at why they're saying it. And the whole thing is structured around the narrative that Engage didn't do as well as Three Houses. And I think that's kind of, like you were saying, just a dangerous way of thinking around the industry right now. Because they look at the line on the graph and go, oh shit, it went down, something must be wrong, we gotta change this to make sure it doesn't keep going down. And because games take so long, they take like, instead of 2 years, it's like 3 or 4 years now.
If not significantly longer, which is terrifying.
Yeah, and then the investment becomes higher, and they're that much more desperate to make the profits back. You start getting these ideas for like these wild changes that kind of go against like what the series is about.
Right.
And also, I think Engage selling worse than the best-selling game, like in the entire franchise. Maybe outside Heroes, I think Heroes just makes all the gacha money in the world.
Well, yeah, yeah, absolutely. That is an outlier and should not be counted. No, absolutely correct. It's the idea of always chasing the ever-increasing number. And so many studios do that. So many developers fall into that trap. And you can never recapture the lightning in that way. Like, you can take what was successful and continue to lean into it, and maybe over time, with smart investment and development choices, you will be able to grow into something that was bigger than you ever could have dreamt of when you first captured that lightning in a bottle. That's what happened with FromSoft. They popped off with Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, and then Elden Ring happened. Like, Sekiro was in there. We don't need to talk about that. That's a whole different beast. But
yes, we do. It's so good.
But then Elden Ring happened. And FromSoft went from getting a steadily larger reputation and fan base to suddenly having the eyes of the gaming world on them and creating one of the most beloved video games ever to exist. And they never could have achieved that if they didn't just keep leaning into what their vision was and refining their craft, like you were saying.
Yeah, they stuck to it.
They could have made changes based on what people have been screaming at them to do for years with difficulty modifiers and modes and this and that, but they didn't, and that's where they got where they are now. Now, you look at Engage, and you can see a lot of what I would say is either trend chasing or trying to lean into things that were a lightning in a bottle, once in a lifetime mechanic, and trying to force that to keep making it happen. You know, we've talked a lot, and I know that we have personal disagreement in terms of the designs of characters in Engage and personalities and things like that. But I think
I like them.
I know, and I there are ones that I very much like and ones I very much dislike. But I think we can both agree, looking at when Engage started development, it's very clear that it's around the time that VTubers really took off. And I don't...
What are you talking about?
I don't like everyone who are just like, oh, everyone is just VTubers. They hired an artist that does VTubers, yada, yada, yada. Or they just look like Genshin Impact ripoffs. I don't agree with that. I don't push it that far. But IS clearly saw a trend that was becoming massively popular in the overall demographic that their games tend to target, and said, we got to do that.
Yeah.
And in chasing that and flying against everything that Fire Emblem's art style has ever been, they alienated a lot of people. And we can say without a shadow of a doubt that that is a huge part of the sales drop for Engage. Even just outside of the fact that you're never going to just hit the 3 houses mark again twice in a row unless you're incredibly lucky. We've seen how many people have said, I've never played this game and I have no interest in doing so just because of the designs, just because I don't like them. And that's a result of trend chasing.
I've always said that's always like a thing that's just been ongoing over the years with anime designs, where they get more and more outlandish.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And like you want to stand out to really sell like your product, be it like a game or an anime or a VTuber or whatever. But they flew too close to the sun for the little Fire Emblem thing on their backpack. And it's just like, you're Fire Emblem, what are you doing up there?
Exactly. And it's like, at a certain point, by sticking to your art style and making that distinct, that is how you then stand out. In a world where everyone is trying to look more and more like every single one of their characters is a starting character in a Korean MMO, having a more grounded art style that is core to your series, that is recognizable, will make you stand out. But that requires a longer term focus on building what the brand is and continuing to hone it in the fashion of something like FromSoft. So that,
I think they were a little afraid of just Fire Emblem stagnating and then like losing sales like it did before Awakening. A big part of what saved Awakening was like its art style being really like, I don't know, those designs kicked ass. Kozaki's a god, what can I say? Like,
well, yeah, and
his
I
art
completely
is
agree.
so good.
I completely agree. The thing is, if you put Chrom next to most other lords in Fire Emblem, he fits.
Yeah.
If you put Allier next to most other lords in Fire Emblem, they do not.
No, they don't. Yeah, and that's like the most ridiculous design of the game. It's like right there on the cover.
Yeah, so that's where you start to draw issues. And I totally agree, because they got their redemption. The series was dead in the water.
Yeah.
Awakening was the Hail Mary. They got their redemption. They have a death grip on that now. And that's what happens. You know, like, people talk to go in a different direction, but it's the same concept on YouTube all the time. Like, people hit their big breaks. I've had a couple of big breaks. Then interest tapers off as people move to other games, whatever. And then you have to find the balance to not just keep chasing the dragon and those high numbers and start falling into clickbait and like drama, YouTube, stuff like that, just to try and keep number up. Number must stay up. Instead of sticking to what you do, letting your brand build and riding the wave. And that's hard. I have so much anxiety because of that. Because it's like, well, numbers aren't where they were. That means money is down. That means whatever. But I've learned that if I just keep doing what I enjoy doing and what I'm good at doing, people join up and they stick around and it grows. And the same thing is applicable for building a brand with a game. But it's scary.
Yeah. Especially
if you have investors that you need to please. Which is 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 a publicly traded company? I don't know if they actually are.
I'm not sure on that.
I don't know how that even works.
Nintendo
in Japan.
is though.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, I think that is a good summation of everything that we had noted here.
I was gonna say one more thing about just like the art style thing.
Yeah, go for it.
That's kind of like where Fire Emblem got its new reputation, where it started with Awakening, and then it becomes like, oh, it's the anime waifu sim, and then you see articles like this come out that's just they should lean into that. And yeah, I mean, as we've talked about like throughout the course of this video, it's just that's not where the series truly lies. I think we know that. Yeah,
it'd be one thing if it started out with like it was a Fate, right? And not Fates, Fate, and it started out as a visual novel, and then they like built up this whole base of like tactical RPG stuff and everything. I could see then people being like, all right, things aren't going quite well. Let's go back to our roots. Let's just go back to the visual novel side of things. But they're doing the reverse. They're taking the new thing and being like, what if this just becomes the thing? It's like, no, that's not how it works. That's not what we're here for, my friend. So yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
I'm just picturing like, what if they made a new Pokemon trading card game?
Okay.
And then it's like, well, no, we gotta appeal to the new thing. It just becomes like a stock trading sim.
Yeah.
Something like that. The new identity takes over.
Yeah, definitely. And, you see that all the time in modern media with, like, this well-known popular thing with an established fan base is now going to be skin-suited into this other completely different thing that just wears the face of what you once loved. Don't you still love this? It's great,
I guess that's why people are all mad about, like, new Final Fantasy being an action game. That's a whole other topic. But
it is a whole other topic for sure, but it is that type of phenomenon, and this is the flip side of it. This is people who are maybe new to it and like that new version of it, that it's like, well, I just want more of this aspect of it. Can I just get that? Can I just have the whipped cream and not the rest of the pie? And it's like, no, you cannot. I'm sorry. That does not make a well-balanced
And then
dessert.
Fire Emblem fans argued forever. Oh, wait, they're already doing that.
Sorry, are we back to 2007? I thought we'd already been doing that for a while. Hey everyone, Future Tom here. Just wanted to let you know that I decided to break this recording into two parts, seeing as how Canadian and I talked for a long time about everything that there was to do to quote-unquote fix Fire Emblem, and the overall discussion of what the community had to say about that took up even more time. So I figured that could break into its own episode, and then I will publish that in a few days, a week at most. So thank you for understanding. The second half of this conversation will come very, very soon, including Canadian and I's final thoughts on the subject. Thank you for watching. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.